I want to talk about two really important things that happen in your brain right here. Okay, so let's get ready. Your brain is all about two things: frequency and recency. Okay, so the things you do more often, and which would obviously usually be the thing you've done more recently. If you're doing it all day, it's probably happened recently. So the things you do more often and which were done most recently, that's what your brain pays a lot of attention to. It thinks that these things must be really important because you're doing them over and over and you just did it 10 minutes ago or this morning. So that's your brain's chemistry. That's its survival skill. It's taught to be, your brain has evolved to be very economical, meaning, to really just focus on what it needs to focus on, to use its resources really well. And again, if you've been focusing on something, back in the day when we were hunters and gatherers, right? And we were really focused, a lot of attention on hunting. So the brain would say, oh, this is really important. I'm going to pay a lot of attention here. I'm going to really keep this front and center. If I'm gathering and I know that something is poisonous or not, or healthy, or I'm looking for mushrooms or whatever, that could be both. Do you know what I mean? Your brain goes, oh, and it reminds itself, oh, we just did this yesterday and the day before and the day before that. This is really important. I'm going to put a lot of my energy and reserves here in this brain basket. So, but this kind of brain chemistry can go obviously healthy or unhealthy, right? In an unhealthy way, if you've been spending a lot of time playing games on your phone and it's something you do, let's say throughout the day, I've just had a lot of clients struggling with this right now, so I'm going to talk about it. And it's something you do throughout the day, your brain will see this as important because it's frequent and it's recent. So guess what happens? It'll remind you to play games on your phone. We experience, this is what an urge or a craving is. This is the vicious cycle of it. Your brain thinks, oh, this is really important that we play games on the phone because we've been doing it all the time. So I'm going to remind you every chance I get, and you're going to think about it and want to do it. And you're going to want to grab your phone, or if you've been, again, on social media, whatever you've been, again, focusing on a lot and often, your brain will remind you of because it thinks it's helping you. It thinks it's reminding you to run from a tiger. That's what it thinks. It thinks it's reminding you like, oh, there's something you could eat over there. Go grab it. That's what it thinks it's doing. So now the opposite is also true. Okay. So let's say you want to be more mindful. Let's say we want to use this for good, not evil. Let's say this frequency and recency. So if you just tell yourself, oh, I'm going to be more mindful today, I want to be more mindful. If you've noticed, it doesn't work. What do I hear the most from clients? They say, I forgot to do it, Abby. I forgot. I got to the end of my day and realized I wasn't doing it. It doesn't work because there's no frequency or recency. It's a new behavior. So your brain is giving it nada, no importance at all. You'll get to the end of the day and realize that you forgot to be mindful all day. And suddenly maybe it'll pop in your head or you'll see something that'll remind you. So now if you've read my article on how to make mindfulness a consistent habit or listen to that episode, obviously I will link to it, then you know that my favorite hack for this is to set a reminder on your phone when you're first starting to try to be mindful for 3 times a day. If you don't know how to set a reminder, set an alarm. I don't care. When it goes off, so set it any 3 times you want. I don't care. So you wake up in the morning, maybe set it for an hour from then. If you wake up at 6, set it for 7, set it for 11 and 4. Or set it for 9, 5, and 9. I don't care. Just spread them out during the day. And what you want to do is when you hear the reminder, when you hear the little bell go off or whatever, just notice where your brain was. Just notice. Trust me, it wasn't probably on the task you were doing. Most likely it was thinking of 40 other things. And just bring it back to the present. Just bring it back to the present moment. It's all you got to do. If you want to get fancier, you can do other things. I talk about that in other episodes. You can see how you're feeling. You can take a deep breath. There's other things you can do, but you don't have to. All you have to do, it goes off. I was washing the dishes, but I was already thinking of the 40 things I have to do to get the kids to bed tonight. And I wasn't just right here washing the dishes and just being in this moment of washing the dishes and how nice and warm the soap feels in my hands. And let me just bring myself back. All is well. Because as I am tripping about what to do later, even if I don't think I'm tripping on it, I am not happy. I am starting to get anxious. I'm starting to release cortisol and adrenaline, a little epinephrine. I'm starting to release these things because I am, thinking about things I have to do. When the brain thinks about that, it starts to get a little revved up. So you're upsetting yourself without even realizing that's what you're doing. You think you're quote unquote fine, and you're really not. And beyond that, as you're sitting there, which I've talked about a million times, but let's say your partner walks in the room at that moment while you're thinking of all the things you have to do later, and maybe they want to have sex. Maybe they're like, coming up behind you, like, patting your ass, giving you a little rub or something, right? And you're thinking of all these things you got to do. You're like, I can't have, what are you doing? Like, I have a million things to do. Get off of me, And this is the problem. As opposed to, you don't have to worry about all those things. You could have a quickie by the dryer and come back and it's all good. Or you were just washing the dishes. Hey, great. I don't have to keep washing these dishes. Let's go do it. Whatever. Or you could still maybe say, hey, but let's do that later because you're more in a presence of mind. And then you rush with the things you have to do with the kids so you can get to the sex. Do you know what I'm saying? All of it changes it. But so much of what we do is not realizing that we're doing it. And that becomes the problem, not realizing that our emotions, you feel the way you think. If you're thinking about a bunch of stuff you have to do, or if you're thinking about the past and something you regret, whatever it is, you are less happy. You are not feeling the same. And we know this from, again, I list all the research in other posts, so I don't really want to spend a lot of time on that here. But we know from the research that you are less happy if your mind is wandering. End of story. End of story. Even if you're wandering and you're thinking about things that you think are happy, what they found from the research, this is mostly Matt Killingsworth's research. If you haven't seen his TED Talk yet, you should, shows that we are less happy even if we think we're thinking of happy things than we would be if we had just been in our moments. So there you go. So again, the more you do this, the more you bring your mind back, the more you, practice this little, I call it the alarm game here. The more you do this, the more the brain sees it as important because you're doing it frequently, right? 3 times a day, you're setting the reminders on your phone, and you've done it recently. If you did it 3 times a day, then you just did it a few hours ago, likely. And here's what happens 100% of the time. I'm telling you, I guarantee it's going to happen. In just a few days, sometimes even the same day, people notice that even when the reminder doesn't alert you, even when the phone doesn't go off, you'll find yourself noticing your thoughts and being mindful of yourself. Your brain will tap you on the shoulder. It'll be like, hey, aren't you supposed to be noticing? And there you go. You did it. You've literally trained your brain for good in that moment. And, I do all this mindfulness activity and I set intentions during the day and I do all the things. And even because it's a practice, it's not something that you get to where you're done. I will find times when I'm just noticing I'm not very mindful, in general. And I go back to this exercise. I set the reminders on my phone for 3 times a day when this happens. And it gets me right back into the flow, right back in. Now, when the reminders go off, do not make it wallpaper. Don't just turn it off every time. If you're in a meeting, don't think, oh, I can't do it. Do it. They don't care. Turn it off and take a minute and do it. Notice where you were and come back. You probably weren't listening anyway in the meeting because you probably had a wandering mind. So it's really, really important. So what you place your attention on elevates that thing again. And what you take your attention away from, again, think about that. It diminishes it, lessens it. So it really is that simple. Okay. I didn't say it was easy. I said it was simple. So again, when you notice that you're having trouble quieting, your thoughts, you can check. At that point, you should probably check out my article. Now that I think about it, check out my article on silencing your inner critic. Do that. Yeah, I'm not going to go into that for a long time here, but just when you're noticing that, again, bring it back to center, bring it back to now, because wherever your attention is, you're giving power, either consciously or unconsciously, to that thing, and so. Really what I want you to do is pay attention to your attention. Look at where it is. I say it a lot, it's the most valuable gift you can give to anyone, to your partner, to a coworker, to your kid, to yourself. Imagine noticing if you're in a argument with a colleague at work, or let's even say they're just saying something that's making you uncomfortable, and you notice and you do something about it, either take yourself out of the situation or say something like, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this conversation, or that's taking care of yourself. And you don't that's the most beautiful thing you could do for yourself. You're giving attention to your feelings, to your thoughts, to where you are. And it's really going to help change your relationships. I mean, in a huge way. As you put your attention places, your energies, direct you. That's what happens. What I've used this metaphor before, but it's true. They've done they've interviewed the winningest race car. Success Magazine did this years ago. They interviewed the winningest race car drivers, and you know what they all had in common? Racing around that little track. They never look at the wall because they know that wherever you're looking, that's where the car is going to go. I remember taking motorcycle riding lessons. Guess what? It's the first thing he said to me. First thing. Got on the bike, and he goes, here's all you need to know. Wherever you're looking, the bike's going to go. So look only where you want it to go. Don't look anywhere else. I was like, okay. And it's the truth. So this is how you have to treat your attention in your relationships. You need to look at where you want it to be, where you want to go, not where you don't want to be, but that's where we end up spending a lot of our attention. Focusing, again, on your partner's, on their short temper, on their forgetfulness, on, your sister's lateness, on your boss's unfairness, is like focusing on the wall. If it's helped you, I don't think you'd be listening right now. If it was so helpful to focus on how, annoying these things are, you'd be feeling fabulous and great and happy every day, and you would not be wasting your time listening to Abby. You wouldn't need to. So what I'm saying is true. It's not helpful. Stop it. Stop it. Focusing on how unfair your mother is like focusing on the wall. Playing revenge fantasies about that coworker is like focusing on the wall. Nothing good will come of it. And you're not going to win the race, to be really cute with my metaphor. You're going to end up crashing and burning. It's all that's going to happen. And it's going to slow you down from where you want to go. It's even if you don't hit the wall, it's going to really slow you down. So you got to take a minute and think about where your focus is. And let me say this. Right now, think about where, like before you were in a love relationship, if you're in one right now, or if you want one, I want you to think right now about this. Before you were in it, where was your focus? Right? You're focused on getting into one. Maybe you're putting, ads somewhere or posts. Sorry, it's not ads anymore. In my day it was. You have dreams maybe of marriage and of kids or growing old with someone you love. You might spend a lot of time placing, signing up for Match or whatever, or these online dating, speaking to your friends, your sister about it. You might have talked to a coworker, best whatever. Maybe you start eating well and exercising. No matter what's going on, it's a lot of attention. Think about it, isn't it? Isn't it a lot of attention? When you're dreaming about being in a relationship, you're not focused on the negative. You're not imagining, future fights you're going to have. You're not imagining dirty socks on the floor. I know. No, you're not. You're imagining romance, the sex, laughter, connection, being out with friends and all laughing together. You're imagining all the good stuff. That's what you're doing. Now, I want you to fast forward right now to a romantic relationship you're either in or you've been in. Is it the same? Is it? Are you constantly focusing on the good stuff? Are you constantly just so grateful you're in the relationship and so happy to be together and just enthusiastic and looking forward to the next thing? Or are you focused more on the bad stuff? Now, and I'm not trying to be Pollyanna here. I get it. You can't, you might say, well, I can't just focus on the good stuff. Well, by the way, you kind of can. But beyond that, listen to my episode on how to the research behind long-lasting, happy relationships. But beyond that, is it at least the majority that you're focused on the good stuff? Day to day, your appreciation, your gratitude, your love, your kindness, your gentleness. Is that what's leading the way the vast majority of the time? If, 10% of the time you're on I'll even give you 20% on the bad stuff, then okay. And you're bringing your attention back from that, hey, no problem. You're never going to get rid of focusing on negative things or, that don't ever try that, because that's the whole point. You of course they're going to be presented to you, and then it's where you go with it. It's what you do about it, and it's how quickly you do it. And I'm going to say this really quick because I just mentioned that podcast episode. We know from the research that you've got to be a little delusional to have a happy, satisfying long-term relationship, right? You've got to consistently turn your attention to all those wonderful aspects of your partner and really turn away from your complaining, judgments about it. Again, I'll link to that episode. And let me just say the same is true of your job. If you think about it right now, anytime you've been unemployed, you're completely focused on getting a job. That's what you're focused on. You're going into all your interviews, showing your best self. You're ready to say yes to just about anything. And then you get the job and you're grateful for a little bit. You're hopeful, you're excited. And then fast forward 6 months or a year. Are you still appreciative about your position? Or are you focusing on some coworker you hate, or how unfair it is that Jill got promoted ahead of you, or whatever? It happens everywhere. It's just a case of noticing it and bringing it back. Okay? That's what we're doing here. So attention, attention, attention. Mindfulness, 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 so that you can see where your attention is.